Happening now, a massive operation underway at this hour, rescuing people stranded in cars, trucks, and buses along the interstate. The latest count on how many people have made it out to safety so far.
We flooded out. We flooded out.
Heartbreaking flooding in Finette forcing a massive call for rescues, why volunteers are calling it their responsibility.
If you're wondering why Interstate 10 has been shut down over the last day or so, we will show you all the damage done to a bridge in Channelview. That seems to be the problem.
And of course, it wasn't a dry day today, but as we head towards the weekend, there is a chance for things to dry out.
You're watching Live at 5 on Kfdm Channel 6.
Developing now, more than 300 drivers and passengers pulled to safety from their vehicles along Interstate 10.
They've been stranded in cars, trucks, and even tour buses since about 2 yesterday morning because of the water Tropical Depression Imelda dumped on southeast Texas. We felt it important to bring awareness to these accidental storm victims.
Imelda flooding basically forced the closing of Interstate 10. It stranded hundreds, maybe even more. Getting to them, it hasn't been easy because of the high water, but also first responders have been busy saving folks from their flooded homes. There's no word when the water will recede or when the highway will reopen, but Jefferson County Sheriff Zena Stevens says those stranded along the highway can't wait for that to happen.
She says they're in need of food, water, and even medication, so Sheriff Stevens launched a full-fledged operation getting boats to rescue those on the highway, most taken to shelters in our area. Another part of this mission, record drivers were called to start taking out cars and trucks.
Every storm, every situation that we have has been uniquely different. People have been frozen on highways for 3 days. Who'd ever thought about that? And so what do you do with this new population of people who are not familiar, most of them not familiar with our area, and who have no resources in their vehicles? And they can't, they can see a store, but the store's closed, or even the store opens. How do they get there?
Hard to imagine. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office brought pizza for those stranded, and Jefferson County Commissioner Bo Allred and his staff supplied them with water and pre-prepared meals. At 6, we'll hear from some of those who have been spending the last couple of days on Interstate 10.
In the meantime, TxDOT investigating the reason for Interstate 10 being in lockdown. In Channelview, multiple barges broke away from a shipyard hitting the I-10 San Jacinto River Bridge. Officials say 9 barges broke around midnight from the San Jacinto River fleet. One of the columns you can see there severely cracked. It's forced the shutting down of vehicle traffic, and vessel movement under the bridge is also being suspended because of strong currents.
Those barges breaking loose causing major traffic flow issues in the Baytown area as well. Christian Flores is along the San Jacinto River, where they've been seeing about 3 feet of rain this week.
It's been a real rough week.
It's very frustrating.
Just about 15 miles east of Houston, commuters are stuck finding a different way to get to town after Harris County Sheriff's deputies shut down I-10 over the San Jacinto River. The U.S. Coast Guard reports 9 barges broke off from their shipyards, with at least 2 of them crashing to the bridge early Friday morning. The closure has stopped travel completely.
The bridge is always collapsing. I can't get out. My entertainment is over there. So I'm stuck on this side.
It causes a lot of inconvenience for the commuters here.
TxDOT spent the afternoon inspecting the bridge to see if there's any structural damage.
We definitely have areas of concern out there. Our crews have reported from the top of the bridge that there is an obvious dip in the top of the bridge. So that is something structurally we'll have to look at.
Neighbors say this is not the first time I-10 here has had to be shut down, and they saw this coming.
It usually happens whenever there's a lot of water runoff.
I've been here for 5 years. I know about 5 times. The barge is always hitting. It's frustrating.
Now, residents are stuck, waiting for word when the bridge will reopen.
This time here is more traumatic than the rest because the pillars of the under the bridge where the barge hit is damaged. It's work to be done. It's not opening no time soon.
That was Christian Flores from her sister station in Austin. TxDOT officials do not know when they will reopen the bridge. The bridge must show it's safe to drive on.
Developing at this hour, we are just learning the Beaumont Independent School District will not be resuming classes until next Thursday. And at Beaumont United and Phil Price, it'll be even longer. Repair and restoration from flood damage is delaying the opening at those two campuses. All BISD staff is expected to return on Wednesday with an optional workday on Tuesday.
Well, we couldn't quite shake the rain for much of the day. Finally, the sun broke through in parts of southeast Texas, huh?
A little bit of hope, right? So the big question, though, does that mean we are done with all this rain, Chad?
Well, I tell you what, over the next couple of days, rain chances are certainly less than they have been, but we are still going to be dealing with a few very isolated showers across the area. We still have flash flood warnings in effect until 5:45 this evening. Hardin, Jefferson, Jasper, Newton, and Orange counties. Notice, though, the areas that were hardest hit yesterday, places like Hampshire, places like Mauriceville and Viter, they're pretty dry right now. That's good news. Let's work our way down to the south. A couple of rogue showers just to the west of Port Arthur with some heavy rain around Port Acres and along Highway 365 there, just to the west of Port Arthur. And then we go a little bit further west than that, some light rain in Winnie. They certainly saw their fair share. And then some scattered showers pushing up into the southeastern corner of Liberty County. All in all, things are trending down, meaning we're going to get a chance, pretty good chance that is, to dry out. You look over the last 3 hours of satellite imagery showing some of those scattered showers from Beaumont up to Buna and Jasper. They moved up pretty quickly and fizzled out just as fast, so some good news there. Live look at our Weather Network camera. This is a view from our station here, brought to you by Dugan and Beaumont Emergency Center. It is dry on Interstate 10 and traffic moving eastbound with very little problem. You take a look at our WeatherNet station at St. Anthony Cathedral this afternoon. 84 degrees our current temperature. They saw just a little less than 1/10 of an inch of rain compared to the 13 inches of rain they saw yesterday. East-southeast winds currently at 8 miles an hour. Flooding a concern on Pine Island Bayou. Right now, Batson expecting a slow fall. Still looking at major flooding taking place at Highway 326, Sour Lake, and Bevel Oaks. We're going to talk about your weekend forecast to see if we will make the sun a permanent feature coming up in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Chad. Tonight, we are learning about the third death related to Imelda. As water receded this morning, first responders found a 2008 Toyota Prius in the canal in the 3800 block of I-10 South. That's just near Walden Road. Inside that Prius, a 47-year-old Beaumont man. He was found dead. The victim identified as Malcolm Foster.
The other death in the Golden Triangle, 19-year-old Hunter Morrison of Finette. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department tells us Morrison was electrocuted and fell into the water while trying to move his horse to higher ground early Thursday morning. Hunter's family said in a statement they're asking for privacy while they grieve the third Southeast Texas death, again from a high water rescue in the Houston area. And happening now, high water rescues continue in Finette as volunteers assist Jefferson County's first responders to bring those in the area to higher ground.
KFDM's Tan Radford joins us tonight live from Highway 365 in Finette. So Tan, what does the water situation look like there? Is it finally receding?
Greg and Tiffany, as you can see, I'm standing in this water and it's still pretty high. Those in the area tell me it's going down about 2 feet compared to yesterday, and they simply were not prepared for Imelda. More than 40 inches of rain in the last 4 days in Finette has caused massive flooding in the area. Dozens of cars stalled and left behind, and homes with more than 2 feet of water inside. Many in the area say this is worse than the experience of Tropical Storm Harvey 2 years ago. First responders and volunteers are working to make sure everyone is dry and safe.
It used to be something that we felt like we wanted to do, you know, you needed to do for your neighbors, but it's almost more like a responsibility now. You feel bad if you don't do it. We love doing it.
Highway 365 is currently closed and will remain that way until the roads are clear. Live in Finette, I'm Tan Radford, KFDM 6 News.
Well, tonight a lot of comparisons from Harvey's devastation to Imelda. In Orange County, many residents there forced to rush out of their homes as water quickly started coming in their front door. In Orange County, some estimates say as much as 2 feet of rain fell, bringing a stark reminder of past weather. Tonight, many are overwhelmed as they just rebuild and will soon have to start all over again.
Heartbreaking. Keeping an eye on the roads around Jefferson County tonight. At this hour, we know that Highway 73 in Jefferson County between Highway 69 and Winnie is still holding water. Highway 366 at 347 still impassable as well. 365 is closed at multiple points and the floodgates are closed there as well. LaBelle Road by the Bayou shut down because of high water. Highway 366 from Highway 90 south of the bridge is also shut down because of high water. Highway 105 is closed at Tram Road due to high water as well, and Highway 90 still has water in multiple locations. Some of it is passable. Local emergency management agencies, though, asking you, please don't call 911 unless it is an emergency. Of course, you can check on the latest road closures. All you have to do is go to this website on your screen, drivetexas.org.
The more video we see, the more shocking it is from around Southeast Texas.
So sad.
Incredible. Up next on Live at 5.
Our coverage of Imelda continues. A look at the frantic rescues from airboats in Beaumont to swift water rescues in Houston.
A man says Imelda caused his bedroom ceiling to come crashing down in his apartment. Why he's upset with management tonight.
And looking forward to the weekend, we should see a little bit of sunshine and a quiet weekend in terms of the rainfall. Details on your forecast are up next.
In Port Arthur, a man is fed up with his apartment complex because his bedroom ceiling caved in thanks to Imelda.
And he says he feels the response from management just isn't good enough. Troy Walker says the problem started Wednesday with a small hole in the ceiling. He said he called the apartment manager and they scheduled someone to come out today. But the ceiling, it fell on Walker while he was sleeping that night. Even with debris on the ground, he says he's still been living in the apartment. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. Walker says management didn't give a date on when it would be fixed, but told him, file it under your insurance.
And now, Chad Sanwell, your weather authority.
Well, finally good to see a fairly clean radar here in southeast Texas. A couple of light showers into northern Newton County. Got a couple of rogue showers just to the west of Port Arthur. Some brief downpours, but nothing stacking up certainly to the levels that we saw over the last 4 days. We still have flash flood warnings in effect for Hardin, Jasper, Newton, also Jefferson and Orange counties. Those goes until 5:45. Rain out to the west is continuing to drift on towards the north. Pine Island Bayou. Some big problems there, of course. The rivers are at major flood stage at Highway 326, Sour Lake and Bevel Oaks. Sour Lake is the only one that really hasn't crested just yet. It's going to crest and then hold fairly steady the next couple of days before we start to see it slowly falling. So if you live, of course, anywhere near those, just be prepared for some high water to stick around a while. In the meantime, our Live Weather Network camera brought to you by Do Good and Thermicon, looking out over the Port of Orange. Pretty quiet out there this afternoon with a partly to mostly cloudy sky. At Mauriceville, of course, they saw more than 23 inches of rain yesterday. They're at 83 degrees right now and only 0.02 of an inch of rain, so that is good news. And south-southeast winds currently on the light side at 5 miles an hour. Here is a look at the satellite and radar imagery, and you can certainly see the cloud cover has been there. No real thunderstorms across southeast Texas today, although from time to time we did see a few more of the heavier showers. I know in mid-county they saw over an inch of rain this morning. And as we look at the moisture, the trend over the next couple of days is for the moisture to thin out. Look at that. Tomorrow is going to be fantastic. Pretty dry, southeasterly winds. Going to see some sunshine, so that should help with the drying process. As we head towards Sunday, all of this drier air certainly works its way back towards the west. So Monday into Tuesday, we're going to look at exactly what we need here in southeast Texas, and that is very little rain chance and plenty of sunshine. I think by the end of the week, we will start to bring those rain chances back a little bit, maybe about a 30% coverage across the area for Thursday and Friday of next week. But all in all, things over the next several days, temperatures in the middle to upper 80s, low rain chances, just what the doctor ordered after seeing what we have seen the last several days. There's that rain outlook, 20% coverage on Saturday and Sunday. Even into Monday, that drying trend will continue, so everything is looking on the up and up. Let's take a look at the Caribbean satellite. Overall, we are looking at, this is Hurricane Jerry, a Category 1 hurricane. We're watching this system here with very little chance to develop, things not favorable, but out to the west, we're watching this. This is a quick mover. This is moving towards the west at 20 miles an hour. As it heads towards the Windward Islands, we may have to watch this one, and that's going to be probably the middle to late next week to see exactly what happens here. With Jerry, it is a Category 1 hurricane, 80 miles an hour, but it is turning towards the north and showing that curve back out into the open Atlantic, which is good news for everybody for sure. Your beach and surf forecast for Saturday: southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, still high risk for rip currents. Water temperature down to 80 degrees after the water got churned up out into the Gulf of Mexico. Your UV index coming up on Saturday is an 8, and the surf running at 2 to 4 feet. Your forecast for tonight, calling temperatures into the lower 70s, a slim 20% coverage of showers, light southeasterly winds, mid 70s toward the coast, 75 at Port Arthur, 77 in Sabine Pass. Tomorrow afternoon, a little bit of rain, but plenty of sunshine, highs into the mid 80s, looking for southeast winds at about 8 to 14 miles an hour in the lakes, 16 to 20, so a little bit of breeze out there with temperatures into the mid 80s in the Golden Triangle. Here's a look at your extended forecast over the next 7 days. It's brought to you by Philpott Ford. Look at that, Tuesday and Wednesday, zeros for rain chance. I think that's good for everybody, and temperatures generally in the middle to upper 80s.
All on board for the 0%.
We so are.
Yes. Up next on Live at 5.
Thousands of high water rescues all across southeast Texas. A look as the evacuations and the first responders who saved so many lives. What's left of Tropical Storm Imelda still isn't done as parts of Texas remain underwater at this hour. Ed Lavandero reports some places receiving more than 40 inches of rain, hampering rescue efforts.
Southeast Texas underwater.
There's been a lot of water that has fallen on this city.
Still reeling after a tropical depression hammered the area. Residents were frantically trying to escape the rising waters. In Beaumont, airboats surveying flooded streets for those stranded.
Are you coming with us? We might not be able to come back, folks.
Houston's police chief was going door to door to help residents secure their homes and evacuate. Local officials scrambling to help everyone they could.
We were in the car and the water was rising pretty fast. So I got out and saw the police standing on the bridge, and I started screaming and they started screaming back, and they came all the way down to the car and walked us back up here.
In Harris County, hundreds of high water rescues. But tragically, one man lost his life after driving into nearly 8 feet of floodwaters.
The vehicle continued to go forward. It did come to a pause, and according to witnesses, for some unknown reason, he just punched it and tried to drive through it some more.
Roads turned to rivers, cars stranded on Houston highways, drivers forced to abandon their vehicles.
I feel all right. I was on my way to the dentist.
Okay.
This was pretty bad. It's so much and so fast a time.
People struggling in neck-deep water. This man was spotted floating down this street. One couple in Jefferson County received this huge scare, spotting an alligator in the floodwaters near their home. That county has received more than 40 inches of rain.
The most wild thing I have ever seen. Like, this is so much worse than Harvey.
Still to come on Live at 5. Knowing language is important, and all the more important in Texas, where we can be pretty advantageous. Our Texas Country reporter coming up next.
Bilingual books are an important feature in schools across the country. In El Paso, there's a family that's been publishing them for decades. Here's Texas Country reporter Bob Phillips in Way, West Texas.
On a street corner in El Paso, more than 2,000 miles southwest from the giant book publishing powerhouses in New York City, sits an eye-catching building bursting with color under the desert sun. While the building may have a character all its own, it is nothing compared to the characters brought to life here. For more than 30 years, Bobby and Lee Bird have brought original multicultural stories to bookshelves worldwide.
We publish children's books, and we publish all the way up to young adult fiction, and we also do adult books. Lee's a novelist and a short story writer, and I'm a poet. And we sort of fell into doing children's books because we published La Llorona.
Te voy a contar el cuento de La Llorona. O mejor dicho, te voy a contar un cuento de La Llorona.
The third person we met was this bilingual storyteller named Joe Hayes. And he said, you're going to have to publish La Llorona and publish it bilingually. And that started us off publishing children's bilingual books. And so every book has taken us sort of in this new journey, and that's really what we love about it. Young adults, teens weren't seeing themselves especially teens from around here, weren't seeing themselves in books. So we began to search for stories from people of color, from minorities. Maybe not search for them, they would come to us.
From the bubblegum chewing rattler to the Festival of Bones, the titles that fill the shelves at Cinco Puntos Press encapsulate the attitude and culture surrounding this border town. Lee and Bobby started their bilingual publishing company back in 1985 to act as a voice for a part of the country that's often overlooked. Now they represent hundreds of stories that may otherwise have never graced the pages of a book.
We are received well, we're well thought of in the publishing community because now everybody wants diverse books. They want, we need diverse books. Well, that's what we started doing when we started.
Before they were popular.
Right, take your neighborhood stories and kind of push them, as opposed to maybe your neighborhood story's not that interesting. Sure it is, Joe's were interesting. Look, take yours and make it interesting.
Looking for a good read? Cinco Puntos Press publishes books you won't find anywhere else. I'm Bob Phillips, Texas Country Reporter on the road in El Paso for KFDM 6 News.
Well, it's been crazy the last several days, but finally we saw a little bit of sun creaking through.
It really have, and I got caught editing a scene. So let's bring up the sky cam and take a look at what it looks like out there in orange. And this is kind of resemblance of what is out there all across southeast Texas this afternoon. And there is a little bit of sunshine peeking through, so that is certainly some very good news after the rains that we've had the last 4 or 5 days. Overall, the trend this weekend, temperatures middle to upper 80s. Going to be looking for maybe a 10-20% coverage of showers when you do see the rain. It may last for a little while, but it's not going to be anything that you need to be really worried about as opposed to what we saw. Again, the trend over the next 7 days is for drier, warmer weather.
I did say creaking, kind of like the door creaks when light comes through.
Or your bones walking down the hall.
Well, that's without doubt.
Okay, friends, thanks for joining us. We have more news, weather coming up at 6 o'clock. We'll see you then.
My bones always creak.